Ladies and gentlemen, we will move to the last session for today's seminar on the topic Strategy and Evolving of Halal Branding Beyond COVID-19 Pandemic. I would like to introduce Honorable Speaker, Professor Dr. Jonathan Wilson, Founder Partner Dragonfly Black, Branding Consultant from London, United Kingdom. His area of expertise specializing the ABCD of business and culture, advertising, branding, communications, and digital. His experience published over 200 pieces of work, spoken at over 100 conferences across the globe. Editor-in-chief of the Journal of Islamic Marketing and author of the book Halal Branding. Please give a warm welcome Professor Dr. Jonathan Wilson.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Sawadee. Happy to be giving you a talk. Unhappy to be giving you a talk through video. I really wish that I was with you guys in Thailand. I have some really fond memories, and I have to also say I've still got the trophies. This is a beautiful thing, and it normally sits on my shelf. So I just wanted to mention that and say, I'm missing you all. And of course, all my brothers and sisters from all the other exotic, beautiful, fantastic Muslim and non-Muslim countries. What can I say? When am I going to see you again? But for now, this is my talk through video, and I'll be doing a Q&A afterwards. So whilst you're listening to me, think about some of the things that you'd like to ask me, whether that's texting comments or asking them live. I don't know what's going on, but here goes. So, I've been asked to reflect upon halal in a kind of post-COVID. Are we post-COVID yet? Or during this kind of COVID phenomenon. And 2020 really has been, I think it's been a completely unexpected year for a number of reasons. But let's just kind of remind ourselves of why we're doing what we're doing. And I was reminded by that fact this morning because I was giving a lecture to my postgraduate students about sustainability. Now, I'm going to share some slides with you about some of the key themes with regards to sustainability. And if you didn't already know, they have this thing called a triple bottom line, which is people, profit, and planet. Now, you might think to yourself, hey, that's what we do in halal. You are absolutely right. It's exactly what we do in halal. We think about people, we think about the planet, and we think about profits. And of course, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So depending on how you spell that, is it about making money, or is it about a divine connection with the greatest of all creation? It's both of those, right? Because we wouldn't be talking at a conference like this and doing what we're doing if we didn't have sustainable business models. So one of the key things that's come up in my thinking is just sustainability and post-COVID era means, are we building robust business models? Right? Now, by that, what I mean is, do we have a business tomorrow? As best as we can plan, of course. I mean, everything is in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But let's just think about that, because if you look in mainstream press, there have been a lot of businesses which have gone into liquidation, have closed down, have shut down stores, and there have been lots of reasons why. They'll say, oh, they didn't pivot well enough, people haven't been able to go into their stores. But I would like to focus on some of the things that I think are the main culprits. Number one, business strategy. And by that, what I mean is, if you're not planning for the short, medium, and long term, strategically, looking at your bottom line and your balance sheets, it's very difficult to survive these unexpected circumstances such as COVID-19 that we're experiencing. And I'd like to go even in more detail and say that some of the businesses that we're seeing in the headlines, household names that have been around for decades, are not able to cope. Why? Because they're saddled with debt. Now, we as Muslims know that debt is something that we should avoid, but I want to reinforce that point that, there are lots of talks about, getting out loans or halal loans, and I'm not going to be the judge on whether you do or do not, but let's be clear on this. Be very careful about taking on more than you can cope with, and debt is one of the number one ways to pull you under, because if you think about a business model that has savings, if you want to call it a war chest, call it a war chest, but if you have savings, then you have the ability to shoulder the burden when these calamities strike. You also have the money to be able to reinvest and redeploy in new areas. So smart thinking would be save some money for that rainy day or that calamity, but also think about how you can wisely invest that money so that you have a future. Now, what do I mean by wisely invest? I can think of some key areas, one of which is people. If we are not, as a halal community, investing in our young people or people who are looking for an alternative career, people who have not really thought about halal as being a legitimate profession, we should be reaching out to those people, especially because they would have key skills in areas that could enrich what it is that we do within the halal community. So I think that we need to go on a charm offensive and remind people and resell and refine our proposition as to what halal means, not just from a consumption perspective, but also from a business perspective, why it's important for our community to get behind this. Because if you're thinking about us having control of our own destiny with regard to certification, accreditation, having businesses that we can exist within, that we are more comfortable with, where there is barakah, then we have to present this opportunity to more people. Now, beyond people, the other thing that I would say, and no surprise, right, because I wrote a book on halal branding, would be that we have to invest in our brands. Now, by that, what I mean is, and I want to remind us of that simple calculation. Let's take, for example, a pair of sneakers or a pair of trainers. Now, most of them are made in places like Bangladesh, Vietnam, places like that, and they cost about, sadly, $8 to make. Now, if that item, functional item, because it's about footwear, getting you from one place to another, keeping your feet dry, if you were to sell it in the marketplace, roughly you can only charge double what it cost you to make. If there was no made in America, made in Vietnam, made in Bangladesh, there was no Adidas, Nike, whatever your favorite brand is, because people would see only the functional value in what it is that you are selling. And I reckon you'd get $16 tops, and that's probably in a developed nation. However, we know that when you put that Nike swoosh, the Adidas 3 stripes, whether that's a pair of Yeezys by Kanye West, which if you don't know, ask your children, goes for 10 times the amount of an Adidas normal pair of trainers, that's what a brand can do. So investing in a brand in order to build that image, identity, personality, and reputation that allows people to understand more about why you're doing what you're doing, to have an emotional connection, for them to feel a sense of prestige and value, it's those things that allow you to charge a premium. And if you can charge a premium, you can invest those back in your business. You invest them back in your business, and then you have a bigger war chest, or you can spend more on advertising, and this kind of multiplier effect of the brand continues, right? And that's really important. So I often think that we overlook branding. I've said on a number of occasions that if we only sell ourselves on the functional benefits, right, as in suitable for Muslims, ingredients are halal, then we're not getting extra money in the same way as other successful brands do, right? So think about, even when we talk about the ingredients, let me give you a top tip, right? If you think about certain objects, let's take oud, right, the fragrance that we wear, if it came from Cambodia, or if it came from Yemen, or let's take honey, if the honey came from Hadramaut in Yemen, if it came from Morocco, if it came from New Zealand and it's Manuka honey, those words linked to that product also have meaning inside them. And inside that, through years of exposure, experience, conversations and articles, people are prepared to pay a little bit extra. Just like tomatoes versus Italian, sun-blushed, Mediterranean tomatoes, right? Each of those words paints a picture in people's mind that translates into them wanting to spend a little bit more. Now, they're not consciously thinking that, they're unconsciously thinking that. But that's the job of people like us who do branding, advertising, communications. It's to understand the psychology behind consumption. So, build your brand. Think about your communication strategy. So if we go in a little bit more deeply, advertising we know is expensive, right? Branding costs money too, but there is a return on those things if you are in it for the long-term gain. Now, if we focus on communications, one of the things that I've been impressed on this year, we've had to pivot. So we're doing this conference online, right? People are using Zoom calls, Microsoft Teams, some people using Skype, and more people are doing videos, vlogging. So my top tip to you would be, think about how you can use these multimedia formats more effectively. So for example, I'm recording this video at home in my office, right? So you can see that I've invested in a microphone. I'm actually using my smartphone. This is just my regular iPhone, and I've got some basic understanding of editing software. But effectively what you see here is my own broadcast studio, because I can record videos, I can do Zoom calls, I can do live streaming, and this is a very direct way to communicate with people. So if we think about the entire ecosystem, the halal value chain, whether that's promoting our ideas and our identities, we don't necessarily have to rely upon news channels to broadcast our message. We can go directly to our business partners, stakeholders, people in the value chain, and consumers through video. So learn how to do video. The technical aspects, but also just the aspects of being able to convey emotions and get factual information on pat, so that you get really good at it. Because the better that you get at it, the more direct you can be, and just sending things out frequently, right? So take advantage of social media. If I was to do a check, whether that's halal certifiers, halal brands, Muslim brands, and looked at their social media feeds, I think that there's more that we could do. There's definitely more that we can do to elevate our identities and reputations. And if we do it and encourage other people to do it and get involved, the multiplier effect is through word of mouth. You've got this trail of messages and information which is always going to be there, is searchable, is linked to hashtags, and we can get our message further afield. Now, what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to show you a clip. So apart from doing video, I've also been looking at AI, artificial intelligence, and here's a piece of software that I subscribed to, which uses artificial intelligence actors. So you're going to hear my words spoken by another person with an accent that I've selected. I've selected the model, I've selected the accent. It's still in beta phase, so I haven't got full choice of accents or full choice of images of people. I've got a selection of actors, but let's see what you think. And here's the little trick that I'm going to put in there. I, using things like Google Translate, can do it in different languages. Now, I can't speak those languages very well, so you're going to have to listen and then let me know in the comments below whether those translations are good enough. See you in a bit.
Professor Jonathan Wilson says that in a mobile-first, integrated marketing communications brandscape, the way marketers find ways to grab attention and engineer engagement has never been easier, but at the same time never more challenging. Because the reality is that consumer attention spans are shorter, and they see marketing often as an unwanted intrusion. To combat this, advertisements, brands, and especially influencers are designed to elicit emotional responses. They use images, videos, colors, music, slogans, and descriptions designed to engage our feelings. Also, they attempt to evoke rational thought by driving depth of consumer involvement. This at times may be a form of post-rationalization and dissonance-reducing behavior, in order to remove cognitive dissonance. What Professor Wilson means here is that if consumers are not thinking and feeling to a sufficient level, then they will ignore messages. However, if they are engaged, then consumers create meanings to support their reality. Digital marketing is no longer a subset of conventional marketing, it is a necessary element within all marketing. With these thoughts in mind, Professor Wilson provides the following definitions. A brand buys you something, which is a blend of tangible and intangible functions. It is a human form of cultural expression, designed to communicate meaning and deliver current or future value, which may accrue over time. Branding is a strategic and concise means of expressing, amplifying, and controlling who you are, what you do, who you are associated with, and what you own, for competitive gains, using a variety of communication methods and media that are both collaborative and measurable. The key word here is value. How you want to define value and from whose perspective is open to your own interpretations.
تستخدم العلامة التجارية التي تراها تمارس اليوم الكثير من المفاهيم والممارسات والتي نشأت من المسيحية. مساهمة البروفيسور ويلسون هي طرح السؤال: ما الذي يتغير إذا كانت بدلاً من ذلك تبني نظريتك على تعاليم من ديانة أخرى؟ نستخدم كلمات مثل الأيقونات، أو نسمع الناس يتحدثون عن الغناء من نفس ورقة الترنيمة. هذه أفكار مستعارة من المسيحية. ربما يكون الاستثناء الوحيد للغة والمصطلحات التي نستخدمها في العلامات التجارية هو كلمة أفتور، والتي تأتي من الهندوسية. الآن، إذا نظرنا إلى تأثير ذلك على تفكيرنا، فإننا نفهم أن الصورة الرمزية تنقل رسالة مفادها أن هذه الصورة ليست الصورة الكاملة. لدينا الكثير من الهويات. لذلك، ما يقوله البروفيسور ويلسون هو أننا يجب أن نطبق ما تعلمناه من الإسلام ونستخدمه لتوجيه نظرياتنا وممارساتنا. من الناحية العملية، يقول إن هذا لن يعني فقط أن العلامة التجارية تعمل بشكل أفضل للمنتجات التي تلبي احتياجات المؤمنين المسلمين، ولكن أيضاً يمكن للمسلمين الآن تمييز منتجاتهم لأي شخص بشكل أصيل ونزاهة. การสร้างตราสินค้าที่คุณเห็นในปัจจุบันใช้แนวคิดและแนวปฏิบัติมากมายซึ่งมีต้นกำเนิดมาจากศาสนาคริสต์การมีส่วนร่วมของศาสตราจารย์วิลสันคือการถามคำถามว่าจะมีการเปลี่ยนแปลงอะไรหากคุณใช้ทฤษฎีของคุณเป็นหลักในคำสอนจากศรัทธาอื่นเราใช้คำเหมือนไอคอนหรือได้ยินคนพูดถึงการร้องเพลงจากแผ่นเพลงเดียวกันสิ่งเหล่านี้เป็นแนวคิดที่ยืมมาจากศาสนาคริสต์อาจมีข้อยกเว้นเพียงอย่างเดียวสำหรับภาษาและคำศัพท์ที่เราใช้ในการสร้างแบรนด์คือคำว่า avatar ซึ่งมาจากศาสนาฮินดูตอนนี้ถ้าเราดูว่ามีผลต่อความคิดของเราอย่างไรเราจะเข้าใจว่า avatar บ่งบอกข้อความว่าภาพนี้ไม่ใช่ภาพที่สมบูรณ์เรามีตัวตนอีกมากมายดังนั้นสิ่งที่ศาสตราจารย์วิลสันกล่าวคือเราควรประยุกต์ใช้การเรียนรู้จากศาสนาอิสลามและใช้เป็นแนวทางในทฤษฎีและแนวทางปฏิบัติของเรายิ่งไปกว่านั้นเขากำลังบอกว่าไม่เพียงแต่จะหมายความว่าการสร้างตราสินค้าจะทำงานได้ดีขึ้นสำหรับผลิตภัณฑ์ที่จัดทำขึ้นสำหรับผู้นับถือศาสนาอิสลามเท่านั้นแต่ตอนนี้ชาวมุสลิมสามารถสร้างตราสินค้าให้กับทุกคนได้อย่างแท้จริงและด้วยความซื่อสัตย์
The branding that you see practiced today uses a lot of concepts and practices which originate from Christianity. Professor Wilson's contribution is to ask a question: what changes if instead you base your theory on the teachings from another faith? We use words like icons, or hear people talk about singing from the same hymn sheet. These are ideas borrowed from Christianity. Maybe the only exception to the language and terms that we use in branding is the word avatar, which comes from Hinduism. Now, if we look at what effect that has on our thinking, we understand that an avatar conveys a message that this image is not the complete picture. We have many more identities. Therefore, what Professor Wilson is saying is that we should apply our learning from Islam and use it to guide our theories and practices. More practically, he is saying that not only will it mean that branding works better for products that are catering for the Muslim faithful, but also that Muslims now can brand their products to anyone authentically and with integrity.
Okay, welcome back. What did you think? Was it good? Good enough, probably, right? So let's look at it like this. I had a script, and I pasted it into this software, and I could select different languages, and now I can broadcast throughout the world in their native tongues. So one of the things that I've learned from COVID is to be more entrepreneurial and to think about how I can utilize technology effectively. Another example I'd like to share with you is in the UK, there is a farm called Willowbrook Farm, which is Muslim-owned, family-owned business, and they take orders for halal meat from animals that they've raised, and they are able to send via courier through ice packs and everything orders. Now, you might think that's not very revolutionary, but the key here is that they have got a compressed supply chain, right? So we can call that disintermediation. And what we mean by that is that they are going straight to consumer. But going straight to consumer means that apart from increasing your opportunity for profits, you're also increasing your opportunities to communicate directly with the consumer. Newsletters, helpful top tips, friendly messages, how are you doing? Did it arrive on time? All of those things are really important. So I'd ask the question, certifiers, restaurants, hotels, food companies, beverage companies, all of these different businesses, do you talk enough to your customers? And talk enough doesn't mean broadcast, this is what we're doing, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, Eid Mubarak, Alhamdulillah, we are Muslims. It means, well, what do you think? And replying to them, or do you have any top tips? What's your favorite recipe? You know, where do you like to go on holiday? And generating that communication, because if you're at the center of the communication, the multiplier effect is that word of mouth elevates your brand and your reputation and your image and your identity and your personality. So, carrying on from that, I want us to think, how's our personality? In this quest for raising the status of halal, brand Islam, brand halal, whatever you want to call it, do we understand the components of branding sufficiently? So, the corporate identity, the holding company, the product brand, which is different than the company identity, the whole product line, our public relations, our communications, all of these different units. If it's confusing, hey, give me a call. I can give you kind of a whistle-stop tour on the difference between a corporate brand, a product brand, a certification brand on the back of the packaging, and what each of those mean and how they work together. But there has to be an overlap, right? Your vision, your mission, your purpose, people's perceptions, the value they attribute to those things, all have to work in tandem to give you a more consolidated, branded identity. And if you're not convinced yet, a brand means that you are more easily identified, easier to find, you're on the top of people's mind, so that when they think about something, they think about you. And also, if, and these things do happen, if things go wrong, they can find you and you can apologize. And people that have a good image, identity, personality that people are familiar with are more likely to be forgiven. Think about your friends, people on the WhatsApp group and the rest of us. If somebody makes a mistake, but you know who that person is, you can vouch for them, you forgive them, right? If you don't know who they are, it creates suspicion. So I want us to be reminded of the sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was al-Amin, the trustworthy. The Sahaba had characteristics that we can recognize and celebrate and talk about hundreds of years later. But one of the reasons that they were able to communicate those things to us was because they were narration chains, verified narration chains. So some of you might be thinking, aha, blockchain. Blockchain could do that. Social media can do that too. There are lots of different aspects of technology that allow us to link pieces of information together, and we can check for ourselves, which in a world now where we have these crazy terms which make no sense, fake news, alternative truths, and you're going to see deep fake happening where, as I use that augmented reality example, people will be doing that to change the words of people so that it spreads confusion, right? So in this fog, in these clouds, we have to think about how we can rise above. Rise above means lead by example, and leading by example means having a vital part in people's everyday lives through communication. dynamic, real-time communication from the heart, with empathy, with spirit, with spirituality, and with personality, because we're in competition with Netflix, Amazon Prime, lots of different things that are distracting people from what we want to tell them. So with that, I want you to reflect upon some of those things. And my key message then, post-COVID, is think about how we can harness the power of technology. But harnessing the power of technology means bringing people closer together. And it means putting people at the center of what it is that we want to do. And it means linking our message and what it is that we do, our meanings, to people, planet, Prophet, and the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So, how can you do that? We have to keep talking about halal and explaining what it is that we do. We can't just assume that because somebody is Muslim, or because we state laws, or we give them certificates, or even if they're non-Muslims, that that's enough. It's not enough. I can honestly say, through years of research and publishing, humans are more emotional than rational. Appeal to the heart, appeal to the soul, make people smile, show them how to love, make them feel loved, give them opportunities to show how they love other people, and that can only help and work in your benefit. So, with that, I'd just like to say thanks very much for listening to my message. Hopefully there were some useful things in there. Please don't be a stranger. Keep in touch. And inshallah, I'm going to see you in a country very soon. Hopefully with some really nice food, and we can have a laugh and a joke and do good things. So with that, thank you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bye bye. Oh, by the way, why are we all waving all the time? Yeah, I kind of get it, right? It's the polite way to say goodbye, but what's the etiquette? Like, you know, we find ourselves probably waving more than we ever have. Like, is it two-way?
Thank you very much for video presentation from Dr. Jonathan Wilson. Now it's time for question and answer. Please ask brief question on chat board. If any question, all participants, if any question, you can chat in the Zoom. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Dr. Jonathan. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Now we have a question from participants. I will ask the first question for you. As you said, we should communicate to consumer with something that touch to their heart. How can we communicate about our brand with the story related to Islam or the Prophet to the non-Muslim consumer?
Yeah, so that's a good question. What I would say is you have to find out what people like, and that means getting to know them and studying where they shop, what they watch on television, what they eat, where they go, who their friends are, how they dress, all of these sorts of things. Because if you think about it, in Islam we have many stories, and so the story of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was somebody who had children, he was married, he had a family, he went on a journey. There are many things that he did, and so you have to learn how to explain those stories to people in a language that they understand and they care about. And I think that's really important. So if you think, for example, with COVID-19, and people are suffering because they're losing family because of the virus, you know, you can tell stories about how some of the prophets or the companions lost people that they loved, and how they were able to cope with these things. Those are ways that you can make your message touch people's heart. But I think it's really important that what you have to do is you have to think about the other person first and your own needs second. If you can make other people happy, then they will be happy to look at your brand or your product or your company.
Okay, any question? Okay. Thank you, Dr. Jonathan Wilson. And
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Jonathan Wilson, for a great presentation today. To all participants, I would like you to fill out the online evaluation form by scan QR code on the screen. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we hope you enjoy our seminar today and see you tomorrow for the next session. We will be start at 9 a.m. for the first topic, challenge and opportunities, halal science, technology, and innovation after COVID-19, and followed by topic, responding to halal science and innovation, global sustainability on ecology, economy, and equity. And the session 3, third session, scientific and innovation approach in the new normal era. And the last session for tomorrow, halal sphere, a pathway to establish science and innovation culture. Thank you very much for your participation of today's seminar. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. สวัสดีค่ะ